The next question is from Lynn Bentley. Lynn says, our son becomes quite agitated and aggressive when somebody around him either clears their throat or begins coughing. He tends to physically lash out at that person, and we've been unable to receive any clues as to how we can help him cope with this problem. It's becoming increasingly difficult to take him out in public. What might you suggest, Dr. T?
Well, first of all, greetings to Lynn, who I've known since her son was a preschooler, probably about 3 or 4 years old. He's now a young adult, and I saw him at the clinic in fact the other day. And when I recognized that he becomes very agitated and can thump someone when they cough, I had this almost irresistible urge to cough. The thing, her son is a very gentle person, but he's not by nature aggressive. This is an illustration of how unbearable the sensory experience is, and he's got a desperate need to get rid of it. And as far as he's concerned, this is horrible, stop, 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 stop. And he's learned very quickly it works. The trouble is, this is then affecting where you can take him, where he can go, etc., because unfortunately people cough. Now, you can't really use a sort of behavioral strategy of rewards for not doing it and consequences for doing it, because at the time he's so desperate to end the sensory experience, which is so painful. It's like having some intense pain occurring to you, and somebody's doing that to you, and you just got to stop them doing it. So the reason is very clear, and the intensity of it means that it's something that he's desperately got to deal with. Now, when it comes to the auditory sensitivity, we don't have strategies to reduce that sensitivity. Usually it's avoiding things, but you can't avoid people because of coughing. So, Lynn, I am going to open this to the universe. Is there anyone there who could give some advice regarding her son, who does it not maliciously, but as a coping mechanism for the sensory sensitivity? And other than going around with earmuffs so that you can't hear people, but then you can't really listen, etc.
Right.
I don't know. I really don't know. It's something that really must be dealt with, because her son is not the only person who experiences that.
I like your idea. Let's put that out for the ASPE mentors at this point in time. If there's somebody out there on the spectrum that has dealt with an issue like this before, if you have a solution, please let us know, and we'll bring it to the general public. All right, the next question is from Lady Jane Grey, and she describes through a rather lengthy discussion what was an unfortunate presentation of her condition to her. When she was 13, she was diagnosed as being on the spectrum. Her parents told her teacher, but the psychologist told her parents don't necessarily tell her. And unfortunately, the teacher was one of these people that was probably not quite as sensitive as he should have been. He used harsh words when he advised her of her diagnosis. He told Lady Jane Grey that she was damaged in the brain, and that dreams of going to college were just setting her up for failure because people on the spectrum didn't have the mental capability for it. I mean, it's hard for me to imagine somebody was this harsh in a teaching situation, let alone this ignorant. He did make the statement, if she worked hard, she may be able to achieve some small positive contributions to society. But here's where the story gets encouraging. Lady Jane Grey states that although my life has not turned out the way the teacher has described, so she has achieved some degree of success in her life, she still feels like a failure. And it's this failure that she's writing about. Dr. Tony, how can I get past this experience once and for all so I don't feel ashamed of myself or feel like a constant failure? How can I learn to see my diagnosis as a gift or an opportunity rather than a downright curse?
Oh, Lady Jane Grey, what an interesting question. First of all, you were 13 and the psychologist didn't want you to know at that point. And in a way, I would support that psychologist, because 13-year-olds are very sensitive to the concept of self, what they hear, especially from their peer group. Psychologically, they can be very fragile. And to put that information in without it being the proper support mechanisms can be a risky process. So I would endorse what that psychologist originally said. The usual time to explain the diagnosis is up to the teenage years and after the teenage years. If you're going to give it at 13, 14, 15, when they're still evolving, they're going through the stage of transition through puberty of who am I? It's a very delicate stage psychologically. Don't necessarily throw this in to disrupt. Now, the chances are from the description that that teacher did not know about Asperger's and went to the web or somewhere and read inappropriate information and thought that this was the case with Asperger's syndrome. In other words, I'm giving you the facts. You need to know this. And basically, you're crap. You are a waste of space. You are someone who will never be successful. And how someone could pass that information on and think it's going to help them, I have no idea.
Yeah.
And saying you're damaged in the brain and dreams of college, etc. I think that person, I'm a bit unsure of their motives at the time. However, that's inaccurate information. And what I do find with the teenagers quite often with Asperger's is that when something is introduced for the first time, that can be viewed as like writing on a whiteboard with permanent pen, and whoever writes on it first writes on it permanently. And you have no reason to change, that's that flexibility of having an alternative. You assume that's it, especially if it comes from someone with authority, such as a teacher, who you believe is going to give you accurate information. So from my perspective, I think that was terrible, devastating, and exactly what I would not want to happen. Now, your life has not turned out that way. And in fact, you have proved that that person is wrong. And I think that's absolutely delightful, because when I was at high school, grammar school, they thought I was I was going to be useless and I wasn't a sports person or a terrible academic, and I've been very successful in what I've done. So I have a great personal satisfaction in those teachers who thought that I was no good and would be a waste of space, etc. And I go, to you guys, I'm okay. I've actually been better than you are. So I'm really pleased, and that sounds cruel, but yes. So you've turned out much better, and you've proved that person wrong. And it is important that you realise, as you say at the end, which I think is the wonderful closure on this, about seeing Asperger's syndrome as a gift. It's being different. And unfortunately, some people are blind to the qualities. And that's what I say for some of the teenagers with Asperger's who are having difficulties with making friends. And I'll say to them that your value system and abilities are those of a mature adult. And for teenagers, that's the enemy. And I'm afraid you may have to wait until your peers grow up to really appreciate your qualities. And so for many with Asperger's, they may not blossom until the adult years. And that's what I encourage you to do, is see yourself as different. And damn it, you proved that teacher wrong, and good on you for doing it. So well done.
Excellent, excellent. I love stories like that too.